One of the ways to help kids with revision, especially young kids who are reluctant to revise, is to model it yourself. We need to model that revision is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think the teacher needs to put him or herself on the line with a piece of writing and say, well, now can you tell me places where you think I need to give some more details? And the students will do that. And then you say things like, well, you mean it's not good as it is? And they will say, yes, it's good, but it could be better if you did this. And so you're beginning to teach them something of a way of looking at the process of revising. It's not just the skill of knowing how to add detail, it's the attitude toward revising that you have to sort of teach.
Sometimes it's a good idea to model what not to do as well as what to do. And I think that I was thinking about the fact that going from just the notes to a piece of writing that I could write is a huge jump for those kids. So I wanted to show them what an intermediate step might look like. So I showed them a piece of writing in which I essentially took my notes and just strung them together into a paragraph. Okay, so there are my notes, and here's what I wrote. The weather was cold and rainy as they approached the Pacific. The Corps was stuck at point distress for 5 days because of the weather. The Corps was traveling along the Columbia River to reach the Pacific. They first spotted the Pacific on November 7th, 1805, but they were still 20 miles away. Clark wrote, "Great joy in camp, we are in view of the ocean, the great ocean which we've been so long anxious to see." What do you think? You guys love tearing apart my brain. Kevin, what do you think?
Oh, you kind of jumped and jumped and jumped, but yeah, it's information, so you can't really even it out. So
you think it kind of jumps around? Can you say more about that?
Well, it says the weather was cold and rainy as we approached the Pacific. The Corps was stuck at point distress for 5 days due to the weather, and then the Corps was traveling along the Columbia River.
So are you saying? Let me see. Does anyone want to say what Kevin's saying in different words? Because I think that he's got a really good point. Greg, what do you think?
I think he's trying to say that you're kind of jumping around from fact to fact, yeah, and you could incorporate different facts together. Like you could have said, since the weather was cold and rainy, they were stuck at point distress for 5 days.
Oh, so you're talking about transitions a little bit. That my sentences are they kind of just stand on their own, that maybe I need some transitions between my facts, yes? And I've tried to leave a little bit of space around here so we can kind of do some revising big as we go. So I need transitions between facts, okay? What else do you notice? Billy, back to you.
You're missing the title.
I don't have, what did we notice about newspaper articles? What do they have, Billy? What is it called?
Title?
Do you remember the special word that they use in newspapers?
No.
Tim, do you want to help him out?
Heading.
Headline. So I need some kind of a headline, because we noticed that newspapers had that. But you know what, Billy, you're right. A headline is a title, but in a newspaper they call it a headline, so we want to try to use that vocabulary. John, what else do you notice?
Well, I agree with the jumping around, but you're copying your notes because it says the weather was cold and rainy as they approached the Pacific. And that's the notes. And then point distress. That's another note.
So you're saying that I sort of took my notes and just made them into sentences and plopped them together?
Yeah, all of your sentences are notes. You don't have any interesting things to, like paragraphs or any other.
Okay. So, but this stuff is still pretty interesting. So what do you think it's lacking?
I'm not sure it lacks something, but I know it's just the notes.
Okay. All right. So it's just the notes. I just took the notes and made them into sentences, but I'm not quite sure why that's not okay. It's informational writing, so I've got information in there. I'm not quite sure what the problem is. I see what you're saying. I don't think it reads very smoothly. What can I do? Hannah, what can I do?
Well, it's just kind of like a little boring. It doesn't have any, it doesn't grab me. The first sentence I read, the weather was cold and rainy as they approached the Pacific. And we've been talking about topic sentences that pull you in and tell you about the, sum up the whole paragraph.
Okay.
And I don't, think that there's really a topic sentence that's really distinct.
Okay,
And I think that it's just you need to add more sentences because what John said, you're just putting your notes on paper in a form of a paragraph. It's not really anything.
So you use this word boring, which is kind of hard to hear as a writer, just so you know. It's sort of yikes, but I see what you're saying, and you know that I did this on purpose, so it's okay. I hope you don't talk about each other's writing in this way, but it is boring. So you're saying I don't have a, what do you want my first sentence to be like, Hannah? What do you want it to do?
Be like, I think you should just think of something that's more attention grabbing.
Okay, so I need the topic sentence doesn't have to be the first sentence, right?
Yeah, it can be the first, second, third sentence.
So I need a grabbing,
Like a hook.
A lead.
a grabber lead. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
there's not really, and there's also not really a sentence that tells you, that sums up
Okay.
what the paragraph's about.
And we did say that in the first sentence of a newspaper article, we kind of need to have some kind of summarizing. Okay, so let me just see if I can write that in. So I need, it's boring. Thanks very much.
Sorry.
Oh, you're right. You're right. It's boring. Need a summary of what the article is going to be about. We noticed that in all the newspaper articles we looked at. I see you, Casey. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm thinking about how I can revise. Casey.
Okay. You know how you're supposed to lead it? Well, we're not. Well, it's a good idea to lead it up. Where it's when it says the weather is cold and rainy as they approach, maybe you should say, but it's too chilly for Lewis and Clark to finish this expedition.
Okay, so you're giving me an idea for another lead. And you know what else you did that I think is really important that I'm not sure that anyone else noticed? Let's look at this first sentence. The weather was cold and rainy as they approached the Pacific.
Yeah.
They? Is that what you're going to say, Julia?
They.
We don't know who they is. We need to give our readers some information about what's going on. So I should really, instead of saying they, what should I say instead, Casey, do you think?
Lewis and Clark.
Lewis and Clark, the Corps of Discovery. I'm just going to write L and C to remind myself there. Okay, you girls have been really patient over here. Krista, what were you going to notice?
It's kind of like listing the notes you have done, and it needs a lot more detail because it's not it's not detailed enough because it's kind of like, Jan, you don't want to read this anymore.
And you know what? It's like the kiss of death for a piece of writing, right? If my first paragraph doesn't grab my reader's attention, they don't want to read on, I haven't done my job.
They don't care.
They don't care. So I need detail. I hate to ask a leading question, but there's a word that I'm kind of looking for that I think is really missing from this piece. Brandon, what do you think?
Description.
Description, right?
Wait, from the addings or your actual piece?
The actual piece. If you think about the 6 traits, what is this really lacking? What is it completely lacking? Greg, what do you think?
Organization.
It could be better organized, you're right, but voice, right? Does this sound like anyone that cares about this topic?
No.
Is any of my passion coming through at all? Needs a little bit. Do you agree with me? I mean,
Yeah. And it needs sentence fluency.
and it does need sentence fluency too, doesn't it? Because the sentences are just like plopped on the page. So it needs voice, it needs life. Greg, last comment.
Well, you can't have like one sentence for each note, and you should have like more.
So I only have one sentence for each note?
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's check that. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences. Huh. So you don't think that's not good writing? Not so much?
You have like more descriptive kind of.
All right. So should I try it again?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what we can do here. No one gets it right the first time. And so that's what I try to model throughout my own writing and throughout the year is that, you know, I've been doing this for a long time. I've written a lot, and my first drafts are really crappy too. And the other part is just knowing that not everything you write is good, and that's okay, and that there are strategies you can use to improve any piece of writing. Okay. All right. So let me think. So I'll, in front of the class, sort of draft something and share the thoughts that are going on in my head so they see, okay, it's the same kind of process. And then you have a draft, and then what do you do to that draft to improve the quality of the writing? Well, it's hard work. Writing is hard work. It's just a list. Okay, I need some voice. All right, let's see.
Liven it up.
Liven it up. All right, let's see. I'm going to put this right here so I have my notes to refer to. Okay, so let's try it this way. Okay. And I actually need to kind of move it like this so I can stand on this side because that's a little bit easier for me. All right, you ready? Let's try something like this. A band of weary explorers.